Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to do one more sectioning procedure on this rocker panel, and this will be a little different. This I'm going to glue together, and I'm using Fuser 108B. They're not a sponsor. I had to buy this myself, but this adhesive I've used for probably close to 30 years. I don't know if I've ever used another brand, and I like sticking with what works, so this has always worked for me. I'm going to show you how we're going to set up this rocker panel to glue a section in, and it's real similar to the butt weld with the backer, only this is going to be all adhesive. So let's get started. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is clean this E-coat off with the clean and strip wheel, and I need about a 2-inch piece, so I'm going to clean this whole area off of here. I'm going to cut my backer out of the center here. To glue something like this up, 3/4 to 1 inch overlap under each piece is ideal, so I'm going to just go for 2 inches. So let's get it cleaned up. All right, I'm going to use my combination square. Okay, and I said I want to go 2 inches. And I'll use tape so I can see when I'm cutting. Okay, it's important to get all this E-coat off of there, so what I can't get with the belt sander, I'll take 80 grit and I'll do it by hand. The corners, I'll take a file too, but I want to get that nice and clean in there. Okay, that looks nice and clean in there. The E-coat is all removed. And once I got to that point, I don't want to touch it with my fingers. I'm just going to take the air compressor and blow it out. I'll get this other half prepped, ready to go, and then I just have to trim my backer. All right, both these sections are cleaned up. What I did, I took the 36 grit on the roll lock and I put a bevel on this edge and also on this edge here. So that way when you put these together, and I'll leave a little gap in there that'll be filled with glue, you got a little transition there. It's not a sharp edge. If I left that without that bevel, that glue dries up over time and it may leave a little shadow. It'll kind of shrink a little bit. And it's not so important on a rocker panel because you're not going to see it down there. I've done dozens and dozens of quarter panel replacement, and the sail panels, the ones I've glued, you have to do that because those can show up. You know, those are more at eye level. So by putting that little transition there, you got less chance of it shrinking up. So I'm going to get this backer cut. That'll fit in there. I'll need to cut this about right across there. I'll save that piece. And then I need to cut it off down here. All right, next I'm going to get this clamped. I'm going to drill my holes for my screws. I'll put the other piece on there, get everything to fit, screw together, take it apart, deburr everything, and it's ready to glue. I always want to make sure you have these corners clamped before you do anything else. You want everything to fit nice and snug. Okay, there's quite a few screws in there, but you want these panels to fit nice and tight. You don't want to leave a gap, because if you just fill it in with glue, you don't have any strength there. That glue is stronger when it's sandwiched right in between, nice and tight. Okay, I'll take this back apart, get it deburred, and we're ready to glue. Okay, I'm ready to start gluing. First thing you want to do, make sure we got flow coming out both sides of the tube. Put a new tip on it, and I want to pump a little bit out of here. You can see both parts of the epoxy getting mixed together, and we want to run a little bit out of here. Make sure it's mixed good before we apply it to the metal. Now what I'm going to do to get the glue in here, take an acid brush, and I like cutting these down maybe 3/8 of an inch. Put a bend in it, and I want to use this brush to make sure we have a thin layer of glue covering all the metal. I don't want to just put it on my sleeve and put it in there, because if I just run a bead on here, it's going to ooze out. Chances are it's going to cover everything. But if it doesn't squeeze all the way out and cover the metal, that's an area where you can have some corrosion later on. So by brushing it on, we cover every little bit of metal. I don't know if it shows up or not in there. Everything has a nice thin coating of glue. Now I'm just going to do about half of this for right now. Okay, now I want to make sure that everything here is coated. And I'm also going to put some on the back side. It really doesn't help it glue together, but it protects all the bare metal. You could also take and spray some etch prime on here. But being I got this glue out, I'll just put a layer of that on there. Okay, now I'll put my adhesive on this half of the backer. I'm going to try and get this in without wiping all that glue off. Kind of squeeze it together, go in at an angle. And we'll start by lining up the first hole right there. And if you can, wipe that excess glue off before you put those screws in, because you get glue behind the head of this screw and it will not come out. You'd have to grind the heads off. Okay, I'll take this other half, get this all coated. All right, we can screw this half on. I'll take this little backer piece here and put on here. And I'll just clamp that in place. Force all this glue, fill that joint completely up, and then we'll wipe off the excess. You don't want to use any solvents to clean this off. You don't want any lacquer thinner or Prep-Sol soaking into that glue. So we're just going to wipe everything off as good as we can right now, clean around the screws, and I'm going to let this sit a minimum of 4 hours. So then I'll be back. We'll take the screws out, take the clamps off, see how it looks. All right, this is dried up. I let it go overnight because, well, I had other stuff to do. So I like letting this stuff dry as long as possible. Let's get the screws out of here. The glue that's exposed is always real gummy and sticky, so that all has to be removed. And I like scraping down inside here. This the grinder will take off. But before you put filler on here, I'll come through, scrape this out. Once I scrape it, take a piece of 80 grit, get in there, and try and get everything cleaned out. Get all that gumminess out of there. All right, looks pretty good. It's nice and even, nice and flat. It's a good seam in here. And this is a good alternative to welding them up. I wouldn't recommend doing this procedure if you're replacing this rocker because of rust, because chances are no matter where you cut it, there's probably going to be rust on the inside of that rocker and you just can't get it clean enough. You could sand and grind all you want on the inside of this rocker panel, but there's going to be little pits in there from rust, and if you don't get those 100% clean, that glue is going to release over time. It's not going to get a good bond. Okay, that'll wrap this video up. Let me know what you think is the best way to section a rocker like this. If you've done glue before, what kind of results you've had. And I'm going to have a video coming out sometime in the future, and I'm going to show different ways to fill these holes, because that's what we have to deal with next. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Remember, hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and thanks for watching.